Would you risk everything for love, even if it meant embracing a dangerous world? The grand hall was cloaked in dim, sultry light, deep reds and blacks bleeding into shadows that curled like smoke along the polished marble floors. The faint clinking of expensive glasses mixed with murmured conversations, forming a tapestry of understated tension that hung thick in the air. Elena Rossi stood just outside the circle of laughter and whispered gossip, the weight of 1,000 eyes barely contained behind the glass of her trembling hands. Her auburn waves fell softly over her shoulders, silk contrasting with the stark black of her knee-length dress, tailored but unassuming amidst the ostentation. The single rose tattoo on her wrist, a symbol she concealed beneath delicate cuffs, pricked her skin with its own silent defiance. A man approached, voice smooth like oil, his eyes sharp with unreadable intent. "Elena, may I?" His hand gestured to the dance floor, an unspoken promise of something deeper, of belonging. She nodded, heart pounding with a cocktail of hope and fear. But as they moved, the man's eyes flicked past her, landing on a ripple of guests who smirked, their glances sharp knives veiled by silk smiles. Suddenly, a cruel joke echoed through the gilded chamber, delivered with exotic venom by another man, tall, imposing, dressed in the finest black tailored to power and menace. "Who's she? Another stray trying her luck?" A sneer lifted his lip. Laughter erupted, the sound jagged and cruel, piercing Elena's chest with 1,000 shards. The man who led her faltered, his grip weakening. "Maybe you don't belong here, after all," the sharp voice jeered, eyes glittering with malice. Elena's green eyes flared, a storm beneath calm surface, but the world spun wildly beneath her feet. The crowd parted as if she were poison, leaving her exposed and naked in humiliation. The room's warmth drained, replaced by a cold so bleak it cut through the expensive fabrics and whispered promises. A single crystal glass slipped from trembling fingers, shattering on the floor with a clatter that silenced the room, a brutal punctuation to rejection. Her breath caught. Cheeks burned not just with shame but with a fierce, raw edge of anger that simmered beneath her skin. She straightened, head held high despite the fury clawing at her throat. The man who mocked her approached, slow, deliberate. "You should know your place," he hissed close to her ear. Elena's eyes met his, unwavering. "Maybe I'm exactly where I'm meant to be." The crowd shifted, whispers reigniting like a gathering storm. Her pulse thundered in her ears, a pulse matched only by the distant roar of the city beyond the grand windows. She stepped back, the gleam of a shadowed hallway catching her eye, a place away from whispered lies and fractured smiles. Her hand brushed the rose tattoo, a silent promise that beneath the night's darkness burned a fire yet unquenched. Outside, rain began to fall, soft and relentless, washing the streets in silver. Elena paused at the threshold, turning briefly to the opulent Hala kingdom of secrets, power, and Pinand, then stepped away, the echo of her heels lost beneath the storm. The glass turned dark behind her, the laughter fading into distant thunder. The night was hers alone now, a harsh crucible that would forge strength from rejection. Her journey had begun not with acceptance, but with the sharp sting of being dismissed, yet somewhere within the shadows of that sting lay the seed of a fierce, unyielding resolve. The heavy, oppressive silence that followed the shattering of the crystal glass clung to Elena like a second skin. Stillness enveloped the grand hall, broken only by the fading murmurs of disbelief and the distant, rhythmic pulse of rain tapping coldly against towering stained glass windows. Her green eyes burned with a storm of unresolved fury, shame curling beneath the surface like toxic smoke, a fire neither kindled nor wished for but impossible to extinguish. She pressed her back against the cool marble wall, anchoring herself while myriad reflections fractured in the obsidian sheen beneath her feet, like distorted pieces of a broken mirror mirroring her fragmented soul. The men and women surrounding her, cloaked in opulent silks and shadows of power, pierced her with knives disguised as approving nods and whispered speculation. To them, she was a wild card, too bold, too raw, too unpredictable. Elena's gaze flicked to her wrist. the solitary red rose tattoo, vivid against pale skin. Its symbolism burned within her passion, danger, a tangled beauty, but tonight that promise felt betrayed, a cruel reminder that even the fiercest blooms can be crushed beneath unyielding boots. The music resumed, dark strings weaving a haunting melody that threaded through the room's chill. She caught sight of a mirror near the entrance, its surface partially obscured by dim candlelight. Tentatively, she lifted her gaze to meet her reflection, eyes blazing back, fierce and unyielding, a woman caught between the desire to be seen and the necessity to hide. From the shadows near the bar, a figure watched with grave intensity. Vincenzo Moretti, the man whose shadow loomed over her world. His gaze, a tempest rich with menace and allure, lingered on her with unsettling fascination. Elena sensed the undeniable pull, a wild, dangerous tether binding them beyond words or reason. Her breath hitched as a hesitant voice beside her murmured, "Are you all right?" Elena's eyes narrowed slightly, caught between instinctive suspicion and an aching craving for support. She didn't answer but glanced past the stranger, toward a locked, dim corridor that beckoned with secrets and promises of escape. Slowly, she distanced herself from the gathering, each step a resistant rhythm against the crushing weight of rejection. The whispered judgments swirled like smoke, thick and choking, the elite's unyielding hierarchy a cruel tapestry where she was nothing but a thread to be cut loose. Outside the sweeping windows, the city lights blurred in swirling rain, the world outside a suffocating cage of glass and steel. Elena's fingers curled tightly into the fabric of her dress, the hours since the humiliation unfurling in bitter shards beneath her composure. A fractured resolve ignited deep within, quiet, fierce. The pain of public dismissal was sharp and raw, but beneath it festered a growing defiance. This was no longer a moment of surrender, but a crucible from which a new self would be forged. Her eyes swept the room one last time, locking onto the vibrant crimson of a rose bouquet crowning the florist's tablia, bittersweet emblem of beauty and danger intertwined. It pulsed in the dim light like a living heartbeat, a silent herald of change. Elena exhaled slowly, the weight of the room pressing down still, but beneath the burden, the first fragile breath of rebellion stirred. She turned toward the flickering exit, the city's neon blurring through rain's mirrored glass, and with measured steps, walked into the night, a silhouette carved from shadow and resilience, poised at the brink of a world both perilous and promising. The last echo of the evening's melody dissipated as the camera lingered on the glowing tattooed rose, its vivid red a lingering promise that the darkness of rejection would be met with the fire of an unbroken will. The city night sprawled beneath a bruised sky, neon signs flickering faintly through the mist that coiled like silent smoke between sleek glass towers and ornate wrought iron balconies. Elena Rossi stood alone on the rooftop balcony of the grand estate, the world below a distant, monstrous roar morphing into a murmur in her ears. Her breath came slow and steady, clouds curling in the cold air as the pulse of music and murmurs seeped from the hall she'd just left. Her fingers brushed the intricate folds of the folded note she had found in the rose-lined corner of the empty lounge. The paper was soft, aged, and expertly creased, the emblem embossed in crimson wax, a single rose with thornscot the dim light and cast a sliver of scarlet glow against her pale skin. She traced its outline with a trembling finger, that symbol of beauty entangled with danger weaving through her thoughts and heartbeat. Behind her, the heavy balcony doors remained slightly ajar, a gust stirring the hem of her practical yet elegant dress. The world she longed to escape, that life of quiet, predictable beauty where flowers blossomed under her care, felt distant now, shadowed by the harsh realities she had glimpsed in fleeting but brutal moments. Elena's green eyes lifted to the fractured cityscape, reflected in the glass walls of the surrounding buildings. They showed 1,000 mirrored images, each one a shard of herself fragmented by the night eyes that sought warmth but found only cold reflections. Her pulse quickened, not from fear alone but from the stirring of a fierce, emerging resolve. She held the rose tattoo on her wrist as if drawing strength from it, reminding herself that within passion lay both prisons and keys. The world may have humiliated her, but this symbol was hers to own. It represented a life she could shape if she could find the courage to fight through the shadows. A sudden whisper of movement touched the edge of her awareness, and she turned sharply, heart pounding. Vincenzo Moretti emerged from the darkened doorway, his presence a storm dressed in refined menace, every inch the charismatic titan of the underworld. His dark eyes, calculating yet intense, locked with hers in the dim glow, a challenge and a seduction intertwined. "You wear your fate like a rose's thorn," he murmured, voice low in silk-wrapped danger. "Fragile, beautiful, and deadly." Elena swallowed hard, not with fear but with a burgeoning fire, the recognition that this tangled web of love and power might be the crucible she needed. No longer a victim, she was the wild card, the unpredictable force that even Vincenzo could neither tame nor fully control. Her gaze hardened, voice steady despite the tremor beneath. "I'm no one's possession. Not weakness, not prize." He smiled, dark and slow. "Then let the game begin." As he retreated into the shadowed doorway, the balcony felt thinner, the night colder, but within Elena, a first spark had ignited. The note's rose emblem, symbolic and mysterious, seemed to pulse in response, whispering of changes unseen and battles yet to come. The city lights flickered like distant stars beneath her, a universe of secrets and promises. Elena felt the weight of rejection lift slightly, replaced by the tool she'd long feared wielding, her own fierce determination. She stepped forward, the rain beginning to fall in soft, slow droplets, soaking her sleeve and skin like baptism into this shadowed world she was beginning to claim. The night swallowed her silhouette as the camera lingered on the rose tattoo, bold and blood-red against pale skin, a lingering symbol of passion's prison and liberation alike. And in that suspended moment, poised between shattered past and uncertain future, Elena's journey truly began. Rain clattered against the cracked windowpanes of Elena's modest apartment, the steady drumming a somber backdrop to the flickering shadows dancing across her small cluttered room. Outside, the city pulsed like a living beast, distant sirens wailing, tires splashing through puddles in narrow alleys, and the faint echoes of hurried footsteps beneath flickering street lamps. Elena stood near the window, the wet glass pressing cool against her fingertips, while a single rose lay on the worn wooden table beside Harriet's deep red petals, a silent testament to passion and peril intertwined. The note she had found, intricately folded and sealed with a crimson rose emblem, peeked out just beneath the dark velvet cloth that once covered her late grandmother's keepsakes. It felt like a secret tendril stretching out of the past, an invitation to uncharted paths. Elena's piercing green eyes traced the letters' faded ink, her breath shallow in the tension of newfound purpose blended with lingering uncertainty. The scent of damp earth and blooming roses swirled through the room, mingling memories with the possibility of change. She wrapped her hands around a steaming cup of tea, the warmth trying to seep past the chill clinging to her bones. The isolation following the public humiliation at the gala weighed heavily, a suffocating cloak she struggled to shed. Yet, beneath the heaviness, an ember glowed, a fragile stir of courage, kindling with each beat of her heart. A sudden knock interrupted the stillness, a rapid, urgent tapping at her door. Elena's gaze snapped up, unease prickling beneath her skin. The door creaked open to reveal a shadowed figure, a slender woman with eyes sharp as glass and a voice that bore secrets. "Elena Rossi," the woman said quietly, stepping inside with purposeful grace. "It's time to stop hiding. Vincenzo expects more." Elena swallowed hard, the name striking a chord of fear and fascination. Her lips trembled but her voice held steady. "I'm not sure what I'm ready for." The woman's piercing look softened just enough to betray a hint of empathy. "No one is," she replied. "But you have more strength than you know." Outside, rain hammered harder, blurring the city's neon into bleeding stains of light. Shadowy shapes shifted beyond curtained windows, hinting at a world where every choice carved deeper consequences. Elena's heartbeat quickened, her sanctuary narrowing into a tight labyrinth of secrets and shadows. She stood, Moving toward the mirror framed with twisted wrought iron, her reflection fragmented into shards, each a glimpse of resilience, fear, and a fierce yearning for liberation. The rose tattoo on her wrist caught the light, crimson against pale skin, silent and resolute. "Change is coming," she whispered, more to herself than to her unexpected visitor. A low rumble of thunder punctuated the sudden stillness, the storm's breath weaving through the room, echoing the tumult within. Elena's gaze drifted once more to the note, unfolding its secret message, a cryptic clue, a challenge, a promise. Beyond the walls of comfort and fear lay a path tangled with risk and revelation. The camera held on the rose's deep red bloom, petals glistening with raindrops, as the scene faded to black, a fragile but fierce promise that the fight for freedom, love, and truth was only just beginning. Moonlight slithered through the rain-streaked windows of Elena's small apartment, where shadows pooled heavy and dense on the walls like ink spilled too freely across parchment. The city's distant hum was a brittle whisper beneath the weight of silence that had settled within her chest. Tonight, the fragile hope she'd traced in the rose-emblazoned note trembled like a candle fighting the howl of an unforgiving storm. Outside, tires hissed through wet streets, an echo of restless souls striding through alleyways thick with menace and secrets. Within the intimate confines of her sanctuary, Elena sat suspended on the edge of her chair, hands clenched tightly, the tattoo on her wrist a burning pulse beneath her skin. Her piercing green eyes, usually vibrant and full of quiet determination, now flashed with raw vulnerability and a blush of hesitation. Her thoughts tangled with the dangerous figure of Vincenzo Moratti, the Mafia boss whose shadow darkened the corridors of her life. Their tentative meetings had been laced with promise yet haunted by an undercurrent of peril. Tonight was no different. The scent of tobacco and expensive cologne hung in the air like a dirge, a reminder that proximity to power was as intoxicating as it was deadly. A soft knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. The door cracked open to reveal a Mana stranger with knowing eyes and guarded intent. "You asked for answers," he murmured, sliding a slender, black envelope into her outstretched hands. "But every answer will cost you, Elena." The chilling weight of choice settled upon her. Her fingers trembled as she held the envelope, the promise of revelation she'd sought tangled with foreboding shadows. Outside, thunder growled low, a warning and a summons. In the backdrop, the dark palette of the cityscape unfolded, the flickering lamplight drowned by neon sins and fractured reflections. The rose-laden motif that had once seemed a gentle symbol now pulsed with danger and desire, entwining her fate ever tighter. Her phone vibrated sharply on the wooden table. A message blinked, a brief, cryptic line, "Trust no one fully." Her breath hitched, pulse accelerating, the thrill of defiance mingling with the stab of uncertainty. In a swift moment, Elena rose, cloak swirling around her like a shield, a delicate balance between fragility and iron resolve. The world outside awaited, an intricate dance of shadows and steel where every step was laced with risk. She paused by the hallway mirror, her reflection fractured and smoky in the dim light, a thousand questions and veiled truths staring back. The rose tattoo seemed to burn brighter against her skin, a silent oath inked in blood and love. Her voice barely rose above the silence, "I will face whatever comes." With that, Elena slipped out into the storming night, the city's breath cold on her face, footsteps merging with the rain's relentless cadence. Behind her, the apartment door clicked, a threshold crossed, a journey deep into darkness and unexpected light begun. And somewhere beyond the veils of night, the wheels of a game far greater than love or fear churned, setting the stage for secrets that could break or bind, for passions that could imprison or liberate. The scene closed on the flare of a red rose blooming in the rain-soaked darkness, a beacon of danger, desire, and indomitable spirit glowing defiantly against the night. The night settled over the city like a velvet shroud, muffling the chaotic buzz of the streets into an almost suffocating silence. Within the dimly lit walls of an opulent mansion, Elena Rossi stood alone, the intricate folds of an elegantly composed room casting shadows that seemed to reflect the tangled web of her thoughts and emotions. A single, crimson rose lay on the glass table before her, its petals slightly wilted, a fragile emblem of passion entwined with fatal danger. Her piercing green eyes were fixed on the carefully folded note in her trembling hands, the emblem of the rose casting a faint sanguine glow in the subdued light. The air was thick, pressing against her like the weight of 1,000 secrets she now knew were far darker and more complex than she had dared imagine. From the shadows, a voice cut through the silence, smooth but edged with cold calculation. Vincenzo Moretti's presence was as undeniable as it was menacing. "You wanted answers, Elena. Now you have them." Her breath caught, a flicker of fear mingling with fierce resolve. "Tell me this isn't the truth." Her voice was barely a whisper, fragile yet probing. He stepped forward, the dim incandescent light tracing dangerous angles across his face. "Every fortune you've inherited, every opportunity that seemed like chance, it was never random." "I orchestrated it all," Vincenzo confessed, his words dropping like stones into the still pool of her heart. "Our love, as wild and uncontrollable as you think it is, it's built on manipulation, control." The room seemed to sway around her, mirrors along the walls fracturing her reflection into countless shards, each reflecting pieces of herself she hadn't recognized or refused to see. The rose tattoo on her wrist pulsed under the dim light, a bloody reminder of desire's beauty and peril. Elena's shoulders trembled, but her eyes burned with a newfound intensity. "So what am I? A pawn? A prize? Or just a dangerous game you play when it suits you?" Vincenzo's smile was dark, unreadable. "You're all of it. And more. But understand, without me, you're nothing but a whisper lost in the shadows." The accusation settled over her like ashes. Truth and betrayal merged into a pain so profound it threatened to consume her entirely. Yet, somewhere deep beneath the anguish, a seed of clarity sprouted, sharp, bitter, luminous. Elena took a slow breath, the taste of iron thick on her tongue. "I am not your possession. I never was. And I won't be." Her words hung defiantly in the heavy air as she turned away from the mirror maze, stepping toward the locked doors of the mansion, doors that until now had concealed secrets, lies, and forbidden desires. Now, those very doors symbolized the threshold of her transformation. Outside, the city's neon lights flickered under a restless rain, each drop tracing the contours of a city that was as merciless as it was alive. Elena's silhouette merged with the night, alone yet unbroken, ready to confront the labyrinthine shadows Vincenzo had cast, both inside and outside. And in that charged silence, the camera lingered on the rose etched in ink around her wrist, glowing faintly in the darkness, a symbol of both entrapment and liberation. The journey ahead was grim, dangerous, and uncertain. But for the first time, Elena Rossi stood as a force forged in fire and defiance, unwilling to be merely a pawn in a game played by others. The scene faded with the distant echo of footsteps and the soft pulse of a heartbeat, their own rhythmic, rising, and resolute. A dense fog clung to the city streets, swallowing its luminous signs and murmuring whispers that echoed through narrow alleys slick with rain. Elena Rossi moved through the mist like a ghoster figure, slender beneath the trenchcoat, every step purposeful yet weighted by shadows that clung deep within her soul. The night pressed close, cold and unrelenting, the air thick with the scent of wet stone and distant fires smoldering behind locked doors. She stood before the tall wrought iron gates of Vincenzo Moretti's expansive estate, a fortress of power and menace silhouetted against the brooding sky. Her breath formed pale clouds, wavering in the chill as her gaze drifted to the single red rose pinned to her wrist, vibrant and alive, a stark contrast to the turmoil in her heart. The memories that haunted her were like shattered glass beneath her feet, each a fragment of hope broken by betrayal. Vincenzo's revelation, that her recent fortune was a carefully orchestrated facade and their love a manipulation woven with lies, carved a cavernous loneliness inside her. She had been both pawn and prisoner, her dreams trapped within a gilded cage she once mistook for sanctuary. Elena's hands clenched involuntarily, nails biting ripples into delicate skin. The pain was physical now, sharp, suffocating, and inescapable. Around her, the city's vibrant pulse felt distant, replaced with the heavy drum of uncertainty and despair. She retreated to the dim sanctuary of her florist shop, a refuge tethered to simpler dreams, a place fragrant with the scent of earth and blossoms that refused to forget their light. The muted glow of candles flickered over lush arrangements, their petals whispering stories of love and danger entwined. Elena cradled a single scarlet bloom, its velvety softness a cruel mockery of her fractured heart. In the shop's rear mirror, her reflection stared back, a woman poised yet unraveling, eyes haunted by the clash of vulnerability and defiance. The world outside seemed to pause. Rain traced silent journeys down fogged glass, while distant thunder rumbled warnings she could not ignore. The rose tattoo pulsed faintly beneath her sleeve, a living emblem of fire and thorns, passion and pain intertwined. Voices echoed faintly in hurried conversations beyond her solitude, yet no warmth reached her sanctuary. She was alone, adrift between the promise of liberation and the suffocation of a prison built not by walls but by tangled webs of love and power. A soft sigh escaped her lips, an exhale heavy with the weight of broken trust and fading hope. Her fingers brushed the edge of the folded note, its mysterious rose emblem a fragile thread holding together the torn tapestry of her destiny. The shadows lengthened, swallowing the space into near darkness. Elena closed her eyes, the city's distant skyline blurring through tears unclaimed. In this abyss of silence and isolation, everything she treasured, love, identity, freedom, was slipping beyond reach. Outside, thunder cracked sharply, a sudden tempest breaking loose, mirroring the storm raging within her. And in that storm's heart, Elena Rossi stood shrouded in darkness, unseen, unguarded, but quietly gathering the shattered pieces of herself before the fragile dawn. The apartment was saturated in shadows that crept like dark water into every crevice, swallowing warmth and light. Elena moved through the rooms with a ghost's weight, each step slower, deliberate yet hollow. The air hung thick and cold, carrying the faint scent of wilted roses and spilled wine, ghostly remnants of celebrations now turned to echoes of betrayal. Outside, the rain lashed against the windows, relentless and unyielding, drowning the sounds of the city beneath sheets of cold liquid. The muted thrum of distant sirens and disjointed laughter seeped through the walls, uncomfortably reminding Elena of a life slipping away in quiet fragments. She reached a mirror framed in black iron, the glass dimmed with fog and streaked with the residue of tear-sure reflection fractured across broken panes. Her intense green eyes, usually sharp and fiery, were blurred now with exhaustion and desolation, searching for something lost deep within. The scarlet rose tattoo on her wrist throbbed faintly beneath her sleeve, a vivid bloodstain on pale skin, a mark never meant to fade. Elena traced the fragile lines as if finding grip on some tether, but it was a solitary gesture, whispered and fleeting. The room was silent but screamed with absence, echoes of love turned cold, promises dissolving into ash. She clutched a tattered letter, the hastily scrawled words smudged but searing with truth. The revelation of Vincenzo's manipulation, his control over her fortunes, the performative love that shattered every dream, had left a gaping wound that bled into her very core. Elena's breath was shallow, lips parted in a silent gasp as the echo of his voice haunted the empty spaces. "Our love, wild, untamed, it's a game, Elena. And you're a player under my control." She sank to the cold floor, knees drawn close, the jagged pain biting deeper with every heartbeat. The apartment's muted crimson wallpaper seemed to close in, the rich hues turning oppressive, suffocating. The shadows curled like serpents, threatening to consume every trace of hope. Only the steady pulse of the rain persisted, a relentless reminder that she was alone, adrift in a tempest without anchor or direction. The distant reverberations of a clock filled the silence, each tick a tormenting reminder of moments lost, of trust betrayed. Elena curled tighter, eyes lingering on the Dorth barrier between her and a world that had become as cold and unyielding as the steel dawn breaking through the rain-streaked glass. The locked door, a metaphor for secrets too dangerous to unlock, desires forbidden and imprisoned. A faint flicker of light caught her gaze, a shard of vulnerability shining amidst the darkness. Her heartbeat slowed, the storm within simmering to a fragile flicker, delicate and uncertain. Her whisper broke the silence, barely audible. Is this the end? Or only the beginning of something else? Outside, the rain softened. A single drop traced a shimmering path down the glass, a tear from the heavens mirroring her own. The world held its breath. In the vast emptiness of the room, Elena lay still, poised on the edge of despair and the slenderest thread of awakening, suspended in the quiet storm of her fractured soul. Darkness settled deep and heavy beyond the half-drawn curtains, blanketing the room in merciless shadows. Elena sat alone in the blackened silence of her apartment, the faint glow of the street lamps outside barely piercing the gloom. She hugged her knees to her chest, the rose tattoo on her wrist a muted ember against her pale skin, its vivid red dimmed under the weight of betrayal. The air was thick with the scent of lingering perfume and wilted flowers, the remnants of happier days, now ghosts that haunted each corner. Each breath she took was shallow and sharp, the taste of ashes lingering at the back of her throat. Her thoughts spiraled, memories of whispered promises and carefully veiled deceptions swirling like smoke in the shadows. Vincenzo's words echoed cruelly in her mind's admission of manipulation, the realization that much of what she had believed was orchestrated by his will alone. This love, fierce and consuming, had been forged in power games, his control wrapping around her like suffocating chains. The cracked mirror leaned against the wall caught her fractured reflection, a woman shattered, yet still bearing the fierce fire in her green eyes. Elena's fingers grazed the rose, tracing its delicate petals as if seeking the strength embedded in its thorns. The symbol had once promised passion. Now, it whispered danger and endurance. Suddenly, a sound broke the stillness, a faint rustle near the flower pot by the window. Elena glanced up, her gaze catching a small, intricately folded note taped beneath the pot saucer. Her heart trembled as she unraveled the paper, revealing the iconic rose emblem stamped in deep crimson wax, an echo from the mysterious note that had started this journey. Her breath caught, the small gesture a beacon in the surrounding darkness. The note bore a single, cryptic line, "Not all is as it seems." A fragile spark flickered within her chest, fragile yet resolute. It was a promise of a deeper truth, a thread leading beyond the labyrinth of betrayal. Elena's eyes lifted to the window, where the city lights shimmered like distant stars, veiled by rain's soft curtain. The night felt less oppressive now, as though even in the depths of despair, the smallest flicker could carve a path toward dawn. She closed her eyes, inhaling slowly, the scent of wet roses carried on the cool air mingling with the shadows. The scene held the quiet embrace of solitude and the fragile glimmer of hope intertwined before fading to black on the silent vow etched upon her heart. Not all is as it seems. A whispered promise, the first light breaking through the storm. Darkness receded like a tide pulling back from the edges of her consciousness, replaced by a faint glow of dawn seeping through the narrow crack of the heavy drapes. The room was heavy with silence, broken only by the distant hum of the city awakening in the early morning light. Elena Rossi sat hunched in a worn leather chair, her silhouette a fragile wavering against the faint glow illuminating her face, streaked with exhaustion and a hard-won clarity. The laurel of her recent trials hung heavy. She stared at the blood-red rose tattooed on her wrist, a silent emblem of passion, peril, and latent strength. Its shape shimmered in the muted light, a subtle reminder that even in darkness, growth silently persists. Her hands trembled slightly, though the tremor was different now, less from fear and more from the tremors of hope that flickered like a fragile flame deep within her. She clutched a small, folded photograph, a relic of a better time, tracing the outlines of her own face reflected in its aging surface. Outside, the city stirred the distant clang of streetcars, the faint rush of footsteps across cobblestone, the rising call of a solitary bird. Yet in her quiet room, time slowed. Alina's mind was a tumult of memories, betrayal, pain, and the faint promise that glimmered just beyond her resolve. She closed her eyes, the scent of rain lingering in the air from a night-long drizzle. The storm that had battered her spirit, a tempest of lies and love's entrapments, began to dissolve, replaced by a soft whisper of dawn's gentle promise. Her heart beat steady now, a rhythmic drum of defiance, each pulse whispering, "I am still here." A fleeting image flickered behind her eyelids: Vincenzo's charismatic smile, the gleam of danger in his eyes, and the shadows they cast over her heart. Yet even in that memory, a seed of something new broke through, an ember of quiet rebellion. Her gaze fell upon the small rose blooming in the corner, a fragile plant, yet resolute, absorbing the little light cast into the room. It was her symbol now, a metaphor for renewal, for careful rebirth among the ashes of deceit. A soft, almost imperceptible breath escaped her lips, the kind that marks the transition from resignation to awakening. She rose slowly, each movement tentative but deliberate, like a dawn breaking after a long, relentless night. As she opened the window, the fresh air poured in, cool and revitalizing. The city's colors gradually brightened under the growing light, deep reds turning richer, blacks softening into grays of dawn. The world was still fraught with danger, and shadows lurked, but she felt a shift inward. A recognition that no matter how dark the night, hope endured in each new breath. Her gaze, fierce yet fragile, looked toward the horizon, an endless note of promise against an uncertain sky. The journey ahead was cloaked in shadows still, yet now, she was no longer merely falling but beginning to rise. The scene lingered on her silhouette against the awakening city, a symbol of resilience, a woman who had tasted despair but now, gently, dared to believe in the possibility of rebirth. The world stayed silent, except for the stirring wind, carrying whispers of hope, a promise that change, however fragile, was still within reach. The dim glow of dawn seeped through the slit of windows, casting a faint amber hue over the room that had been the battleground and sanctuary of Alina's transformation. She stood in the center, her figure a silhouette against the emerging light, a symbol of resilience forged in darkness. Her breathing was slow, deliberate, each inhale still trembling but with a new sense of purpose sketched into her resolve. The shadows that once cloaked her heart seemed to retreat in the face of her renewed clarity. With tentative steps, she approached the battered wooden table where the remnants of her past, scraps of notes, broken objects, and the faded, cryptic letter lay waiting. Her fingertips brushed across the paper, the ink almost whispering promises of truth she'd long denied. Outside, the city stirred quietly, unaware of the quiet rebellion that was unfolding within these walls. The rain had ceased, leaving behind a world washed clean, the air thick with the promise of renewal. Elena lifted the letter and held it close, a breath catching in her throat as she realized the depths of her own strength, the power to seek the truth beyond fear. Her eyes flicked over to the old, tarnished mirror reflecting her determined face. The woman staring back was not the same one who'd been humiliated and broken. This Elena bore scars, yes, but also a fierce, unbreakable fire. She had crossed a threshold, no longer a victim of her circumstances but a woman beginning to control her destiny. With slow, resolute movements, Elena moved toward the hidden compartment behind the wall, a place she now saw as a symbol of the secrets she had uncovered and the ones she was determined to confront. Her hand reached for the latch, the metal cool and unyielding. She paused for a moment, eyes fixed on the faint glow of dawn beyond the window. Her voice, quiet but firm, broke the silence. "I will no longer be a prisoner of love and fear. The truth is my liberation." She opened the compartment, revealing a trove of files and photographs, secrets that had been buried in silence and darkness for too long. Her breath hitched as she sifted through the dossiers, truths that had the power to shake the foundation of her world. A faint smile touched her lips, a fragile yet powerful symbol of her awakening. This was her moment, the inception of justice, clarity, and a rebirth rooted in her own unwavering resolve. Outside, the street was bathed in golden light, the shadows retreating in the face of dawn. The city, a mosaic of light and shadow, welcomed her into the promise of renewal. Alina's silhouette stood tall, a beacon of hope piercing through the remnants of despair. The scene lingered on her in this moment of awakening, the woman who had tasted darkness but now embraced her own light, ready to forge a new path, unshackled from the chains of love and betrayal, her future a blank page bathed in the promise of dawn. The room was bathed in a luminous glow, the early dawn spilling through the shattered window panes and casting fractured light over the dimly lit space. Alina stood in the center, her silhouette regal against the broken past she had just dismantled. Her breath was steady but fierce, a quiet storm gathering strength within her core. The weight of betrayal and the flickering embers of hope intertwined, igniting a quiet resolve. In her hand, she held the torn fragments of her former self, the pieces of a fragile girl caught in a ruthless web of love, power, and control. Slowly, she pieced them together, her movements deliberate, each one a deliberate act of reclaiming agency, a silent vow that no darkness would consume her again. Her piercing green eyes, once clouded by doubt, now burned with a fierce clarity. They reflected the rising sun's golden hues and spoken promise of renewal and redefinition. The mirror before her, cracked yet still standing, held her reflection, a woman transformed, resilient and unbroken. Quietly, she approached the battered desk where a single rose sat in a tarnished vase, its petals slightly wilted but still defiantly red, a symbol of love's paradox, now reclaimed and reborn from the chaos. Her fingers brushed the petals, whispering silent apologies and promises to herself. Outside, the city awoke, its pulsating energy awakening from the nightmare of secrets and shadows. Yet inside, Alina's fortress was unmoved, a sanctuary of strength and resolve. She knew the battles had only begun, but she was no longer afraid. She had tasted darkness and emerged from it, not as a victim but as a victor. A deep breath carried the scent of rain and hope, the air thick with the promise of new beginnings. Alina turned from the window, her posture erect, the embodiment of a woman who had reclaimed her story, no longer a pawn but the author of her destiny. She stepped into the dawn's glow, each movement purposeful, deliberate, a testament to her inner rebirth. Her silhouette paused briefly, embracing the uncertain but promising horizon, an eternal reminder that even in the depths of despair, a new dawn could rise. The camera lingered on her figure as she moved forward, the rising sun illuminating a path of resilience and hope, a silent testament to her unbreakable spirit. The scene faded with the image of her walking into the light, undaunted, unshaken, ready to face whatever destiny awaited. Gentle rain tapped softly against the windows, a soothing rhythm that echoed the calm settling within Alina's soul. She sat peacefully in the quiet of her modest shop, the morning light filtering through the glass, casting a warm, amber glow over her face and the array of blooming roses surrounding her. The scent of fresh petals mixed with the dampness in the iris, symbol of renewal blooming from the ashes of betrayal. Her fingers brushed softly on the glass, eyes distant but clear, reflecting the quiet strength she had forged through pain and peril. The struggles had carved deep scars, but within them grew a resilient core, now shining bright beneath her calm exterior. A single crimson rose sat proudly in a small vase at her side, its petals unfurled and vibrant against the muted background, an emblem of new beginnings, hope, and the beauty that persists despite darkness. Alina watched it, a gentle smile tracing her lips, feeling the faint warmth of dawn seep into her bones. Behind her, the small bell above the shop door jingled softly, a sound of light entering the place of reflection. She turned slightly, recognizing a familiar figure, a trusted ally who had helped her navigate the shadows of her journey. Their exchange was silent, yet filled with understanding, a nod of acknowledgement for the battles fought and won. Her gaze wandered to the mirror on the wall, a fractured yet still standing piece of her past. Now, she saw not a woman broken but a survivor, her eyes calm and unwavering, a testament to the storms she had endured. She gently touched the tattoo of the rose on her wrist, a reminder that love's peril and promise had both shaped her. Outside, the city hummed to life in soft, awakening hues, shadows retreating as light crept higher, promising growth and clarity. The rain's gentle song continued, a gentle baptism washing away old fears, clearing the path forward. Elena rose slowly, her movements deliberate. Her posture embodied peace, resilience, and a quiet resolve. Her heart whispered that even in the midst of chaos, understanding and acceptance had blossomed a subtle, healing bloom taking root. She stepped toward the door, pausing for a moment in the threshold, feeling the gentle kiss of dawn on her face and the promise woven into the rising sun. Her eyes closed briefly, savoring the quiet strength she had reclaimed. In that suspended moment, the soft roar of the rain, the blooming roses, the dawn's gentle embrace, Elena Rossi, once lost in shadows, now embraced her future with open arms, a symbol of hope, healing, and the everlasting beauty of a spirit reborn. Beneath a sky that had begun to clear, Elena stood silent, the rain now a gentle caress upon her skin, washing away the remnants of the storm. The city blur softened in the distance, its dark shadows retreating as dawn's first light spilled softly across the horizon. Her hand cradled a single rose, its petals vibrant, a stark contrast to the storm-ravaged skies behind her. It was a symbol of pain, rebirth, and the delicate beauty born from chaos. Her breath was steady, slow, each inhale an affirmation of her resilience. Her eyes traced the outline of the city, the chaos and darkness of the past dissolving into the cleansing mist. With every step, she shed the weight of betrayal and control that had tethered her spirit, each movement a silent testament to her inner awakening. Elena's heart, once battered and heavy with doubt, now fluttered with a tentative hope, fragile but fierce. She felt the warmth of the rising sun on her face, a quiet herald of new beginnings. Her fingers brushed the tattoo of the rose on her wrist, an anchor, a reminder that passion and peril are intertwined, but that love, true and unguarded, could be a force of liberation rather than imprisonment. The moment was still, and Serene a pause, a breath before the storm of the future. Behind her, the rain's gentle song persisted, a lullaby for the wounded soul now healing. In the distance, the city's skyline stretched out, alive with promise and uncertainty. Elena's silhouette, calm and resolute, moved forward into the unfolding dawn, her footsteps soft but unwavering. The shadows of the past lingered in the corners of her mind, but they no longer held her captive. Instead, they became part of her story, a testament to her strength, her capacity to forgive, to transcend. The scene faded into a panoramic shot, capturing her walking into light, the rain's remnants shimmering like glittering tears of renewal. The rose in her hand, still vivid and tender, was a testament, a seed of hope planted in the soil of her transformed heart. As she disappeared into the awakening city, the camera lingered on the lone rose, its petals unfurling slowly, a symbol of resilience, of love's power to heal, and of a woman reborn, embracing the uncertain but hopeful future with quiet grace and unshakable resolve. The rain had softened into a gentle drizzle, each drop falling like a whispered blessing upon the empty city streets. Elena moved through the quiet, deserted alleyway, clutching a single rose, vivid crimson, vibrant against the subdued tones of dawn. The storm's fury had passed. Peace had taken root in her heart, a silence that echoed louder than any chaos once did. Her silhouette was a delicate silhouette against the early light, a figure of resilience wrapped in a coat of hope and quiet strength. Her footsteps were slow but steady, each step carrying the weight of 1,000 nights filled with pain, betrayal, and the hard-won clarity of renewal. Ahead, the city skyline stretched broad and forgiving, a promise etched into the horizon. The city's shadows receded, giving way to a dawn that shimmered with the possibilities of a new chapter. Elena's gaze remained fixed on the horizon, the rose pressed gently against her chest, a symbol of love's enduring power, of pain transformed into healing. The camera lingered on her face, softer now, yet fierce in its calm. Her pierced green eyes, once clouded with doubt, now reflected the golden hues of the awakening sky. A faint smile curled at the corner of her lips, a silent acknowledgment of the journey that had shaped her, that had refined her into a woman unafraid to walk alone toward her uncertain future. She paused, tilting her face toward the rain-kissed air, drawing in the scent of earth and hope. The city stood silent, listening to her heart beat steady drum proclaiming freedom and the promise of rebirth. The scene slowly faded as she continued walking into the dawn, the rose held high a symbol of healing, transformation, and the unbreakable resilience of the human spirit. Behind her, the world awakened anew, bathed in light and the quiet strength of a woman who had rediscovered her own truth. Would you risk it all for love? Share your thoughts below.